Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. I am so excited for today's topic because this is something that I don't really see a lot of people talk about online. And frankly, because it's the non sexy side of business, but it's something that I want you to know and that I want you to be educated on so that you don't make this mistake. As someone who myself is a business scaling consultant, so I literally coach businesses all day, every day on scaling, whether that is, multiple six figures going to seven, seven going to multiple seven. I am helping people who have anywhere between a $500,000 business up to a $5 million, $6 million a year business. And what I will tell you is there actually is such a thing as trying to scale too fast. And it is not a matter in today's episode that I'm not telling you to not try to grow your business massively. I am not saying that you should not be trying to pursue scaling. I am saying there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And today, in today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down the wrong way to scale because scaling too fast actually can be some of the reason that your business may go under. And I will tell you this because I have seen it happen firsthand in front of me because CEOs or entrepreneurs that I'm working with are just in this aggressive pursuit of grow, 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 scale, 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 only to then really compromise the things that were going to allow the business to scale in the first place. So, I today am going to be breaking down really like understanding what is scaling too fast and like really giving you a snapshot of what does it actually look like for an average business to grow? What growth rate do most businesses have? What's considered normal? I'm also going to break down some of the mindsets that you may have if you are somebody who's trying to scale too fast. Some of the things you might say to yourself, some of the decisions you might be making that are a very key indicator that you're someone trying to scale too quickly. And also, I'm going to break down the impact that scaling too quickly has. So, we're going to talk about what impact does this have on your business, not only in the short term, but in the long term? And what are the actions you're taking today that to me will be really indicators in your business, behaviors in your business, actions in your business that are a sign you are trying to scale too fast and it could be the reason your business goes under. So, listen, I am somebody that you will see. I've talked even in our case study episodes on ambitious and I've talked about clients who've gone from, a $200,000 business to a $2 million business. Today is not about the fact you can't grow fast. It's about doing it the right way. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to really, on the inverse of that, break down how to do it the wrong way. So, what are things you don't want to do if you are somebody who is looking to double or to triple, for example, the size of your business? So, first things first, there really are typical growth rates of a business, right? So, there are like actual growth rates of what's considered traditional in scaling a company or scaling a business. And though the online space or the online marketing world of anything, whether you're consuming on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, it does not matter. You probably get pumped ads that fall into your feed as well, saying like how I went from like zero to this and how I tripled my income in 6 months. And you're like, okay, I guess that's what I'm supposed to go for. That's the thing I'm supposed to be trying to achieve. Well, I want to break down what actual typical numbers are and what this looks like. Okay. So, what is considered slow growth of a business is slow growth of a business is increasing your business's growth by 5 to 10% in revenue per year. So what this means is let's just say year 1 in your business, you're doing 6 figures, so you're doing $100,000 a year. That would mean that if you had slow growth in 3 years, you'd be making $133,000 a year, okay? That's considered a slower growing business. Step 2 or level 2 is what's considered a healthy growth of a business, which is typically going to be around 10 to 25% of growth of your revenue year over year. That looks like year 1, again, making 6 figures. And then in year 3, you'd be making around 195, call it $200,000 or so in year 3. Okay. So high growth, i.e., fast growth, is considered when somebody is growing their business at 25% to 50% per year. So what does that look like? Year 1, again, it would mean you're making 6 figures, but then in year 3, you're making $337,000. So 100,000 to 337,000. So you'll see there's a big jump, right? So if we all start making 100,000, slow growth means we grew in 3 years to 133. Medium growth means we grew in 3 years to 195, and fast growth means we grew in 3 years to 300,000, 350,000 or so. So when we see marketing online of like scale fast, double your business, triple your business, right? What I want to note here is that's not even in any of these categories. Okay. So if you're doubling or you have the pursuit of doubling your business year over year, that's not even considered in the element of high growth. That's considered 100% growth rate year over year. Okay. So remember, the high growth rate for most businesses is growing 25 to 50% year over year. But what many online marketers, business coaches, all of these, people will basically have is that you have the possibility or the potential to double your business every year. Well, that's 100% growth year over year. So what does that look like? That's the difference between in year 1 doing $100,000 like all of our examples we've done so far, but in year 3 this would be the highest, which would be making $800,000 a year 3 years later. Okay, so that's 100% growth rate. That means you're doubling your business's revenue year over year. So we want to ask ourselves, what is normal, right? Like, what is standard? And before I share these stats with you, one thing I want to note is I am all for people pushing for massive growth. I'm all for people going for big, hence the name of this podcast, ambitious goals. Okay. I am not going to be someone who says, think small. There's no way that you can go for that. The reason I wanted to share this was because I think it's important for us to get some aspect of reality, which is that while you have the ability to massively expand your business, is that typical of all businesses that you buy from today and that you're consuming from today? No. And so when we started to get into the stats, there was stats from 2015 to 2017, which showed that approximately 8% of all reported businesses that reported their sales are exceeding sales growth year over year of 20%. So what does that mean? That means that less than 8% of businesses are in that high growth category. Okay. So it really suggests that if we're thinking about, someone doubling their business year over year, that is not typical. That is not common. It is less than 10% common when it comes to actual small businesses and their growth rate. And so it's important for us to tap into because oftentimes we get bombarded with so much marketing of like, well, that seems like it's possible. That seems like it's possible. We want to remember that there's also people who are only marketing the growth of the 100% doubled their business year over year, and that there are also massive accomplishments and massive progress in businesses that are growing in the medium or the 20 to 50% growth rate, right? Not doubling year over year. So it's important for us to root into so we can normalize what is scaling too fast and also what is the belief that we have about how fast we quote unquote should be scaling. And what this tells us is that maybe we do have a skewed perception of scaling. Maybe we do have, a skewed belief around what is quote unquote normal. And again, not to say you shouldn't go for it, but it's again realizing that you're trying to go for something that is actually not in all the stats of small businesses considered normal or typical. So the question becomes if I'm somebody who potentially is that person who's like, well, Kate, I've got really big goals and I just really want to double my business year over year. Like, that's the goal. Okay. Well, I'm going to share with you some mindsets and some beliefs and some, frankly, thought patterns that I identify in people who have a flawed belief system around scaling that often leads them down the line to actually have issues with their business rather than actually scaling it effectively. Because here's the thing, scaling in an effective way could, when done right, allow you to rapidly grow your business, but not have fires the entire time. If you are someone who has some of these belief systems, though, what it means is that you have a thought pattern around scaling that could lead and most likely will lead to you actually having issues in your business, even if you get to the same point as the person next to you. So even if you're going for 7 figures and she's going for 7 figures, if you have some of these belief systems, she will build a successful structured business to 7 figures and you will hit 7 figures potentially in revenue, but you will do so with everything around you burning in the process. And so I'm going to share what some of those beliefs are and some of those mindsets are with you. So first is this belief that growth is like the ultimate sign of success. Bigger business is always better, or more is always better. Like the faster, the more rapid that we expand and scale, the more successful we are as a company. That's often a big, big belief that I see within people who struggle when it comes to scaling. It really is chasing growth for the sake of growth. And often with this type of individual, they can't really explain to me why it is that they want to hit a certain number. They say, they hit $100,000 a month. They were like, okay, well, great. I want 150. I want 200. I want 250. And it's constantly nothing is ever good enough. They're never okay with their accomplishments. They never acknowledge their growth. And it's always more, 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 more all the time. So, a key belief of someone trying to scale too fast is that they believe that growth is the only sign of their success. And if they're not growing in their business rapidly, that they're basically a failure. And so, we really want to look at how this person is thinking and how does that impact the business? Well, they're not considering what's needed to sustain it, right? Like they're so focused on the number or more money or more sales, but they're not focused on when let's just say, sign those clients, am I delivering well? When I promote that offer, is that a fair explanation of the transformation they're going to get? Even though I signed them, did I communicate it in a fair expectation way when I promoted? They don't care about that. So they just think about, okay, well, great, go, 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 sell, sell, sell. And whatever it means to get the cash in the door, that's what we do. And it's so short sighted that oftentimes it comes around to bite you in the butt in the end. There's also this belief that if we just get more customers, everything's going to figure itself out. So if I just make more sales, everything will figure itself out. And by having this belief, the perspective is that by just literally having sales, all business problems become solved. If we have profit margin issues, no worries, let's just make more sales. If we have, let's just say, systems issues or delivery issues, no worries, let's just make more sales. It's always with this belief, just make more money, and the business will sort itself out. And what it means is with this perspective, you're ignoring the alarms that are going off in your business. You're not seeing that there's areas that, hey, regardless of whether we double the amount of money, we still have delivery issues. And sometimes even to the fact that if we double our sales, we're doubling our delivery issues. So the flawed belief with this is the perspective that if we just have more money, all problems solve themselves. And I can tell you, in helping so many businesses scale, rarely is just more money the solution to everything, because money can only fix specific problems. And so if you are having, bad delivery with clients and clients are dissatisfied and they're not getting results or they're not feeling supported or they feel lied to, your marketing said one thing and the delivery is another thing, you making $20,000 extra tomorrow is not going to help you to fix any of those problems. So this is something that as a belief, I want to invite you to disconnect from. That your number one, your sales are directly correlated to your success as a business. It couldn't be less true. And also that your generating of sales is going to be the reason that your business is able to get out of the problems you're experiencing today. The problems you have today, there's a good amount that you might be experiencing and scaling right now that cannot be fixed by making more money. And so this is why it's really important that we unpack what is our mindset and perspective around what scaling means to us and what we perceive about it and what we believe it means for us and for our business. There's also this belief that we can figure out problems later. There is such a strong belief in people scaling too fast that they also move too quickly. And listen, you're probably going to be like, well, Kate, you always tell us to move quick, act quick. Yes, but you also want to remember that you can't just go, go, go and take action, action, action and leave a catastrophe behind you. It's not taking action regardless of quality. It's taking action with consideration of quality. Okay. So when I hear someone say, well, like, I'll figure that out later. So let's just say, they're having team issues. They might say, okay, well, we're just going to generate more sales. If we grow, we'll figure that out along the way. That's not important right now. Like, we're going to focus on generating more revenue. The team side, we'll figure that out as we go, right? Like, it's not important. And I will tell you, I see this, especially with my VIP days. I do intensives with businesses where them and myself literally sit in a office together for hours at a time and we unpack their business. And I would go through and someone would say something like, I lost, 3 or 4 team members this year, but my goal is to really hit 3 million. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You lost 3 team members this year. What was that because of? And they're like, yeah, well, like it's all good. Like we figured it out kind of thing. But like the goal for me is really just like, I really want to hit 3 million. Hey, newsflash. If you hit 3 million, you're going to burn through team members that will be the people who are literally going to make that 3 million happen. So the issue is not hitting the 3 million. The issue is, why are your team members leaving? So the thing that we see is people who are looking to scale too fast have alarms that are going off in their business, that because they're not directed in their mind to, or they don't see the correlation between that problem and them making more revenue, they don't deem them to be significant or important. So what ends up happening is we get really into this place of being reactive to problem solving, or you get to this place of brushing all this under the rug. So again, back to that example, brushing under the rug that, oh, the team members are going to figure themselves out. We'll sort that out later. And what happens is those problems with your delivery with clients, the problems with your team, the problems with whatever it may be, even legal issues. I've had people who are making more and more and more money, and they say to me, "Oh, okay, well, like, yeah, we are in a lawsuit with so and so, and we are in a legal issue here." And I'm like, "Whoa. The goal here when you come to me is not to double your revenue if you, as you grow faster, are having more and more legal issues. Let's take a step back and say, what other alarms are going off other than the revenue?" Because the thing that people don't often correlate when it comes to scaling is that if you solve those problems, you don't have the legal issues, you really solidify your team and make them feel supported, and you fix any issues or disconnects there. If you dial in your delivery and you make sure that your clients are like so wildly satisfied with your program or your offer or service, that will correlate to you making more money, even though none of those have to do with marketing and sales. So it really comes down to looking at, are there alarms that are happening in the business that you're ignoring because you're just focused on, I want to move that number. And I don't care if we're having issues with clients, and I don't care if we're having legal issues, and I don't care if our systems are a mess, and I don't care about the clients that are not happy with results, and I'm having to get on calls to, put out these fires. I just want to make more money. It's a sign you're trying to scale too fast, and you're basically leaving collateral damage behind you in the pursuit of changing that number. The other perspective that is very common is something that I hear all the time, which is, I just want to literally be everywhere. I want to do everything and I want to be everywhere. And I will say, in the earlier stages of my business, and like Kelsey, who's on our team, has been with me since like the get go and been like my ride or die partner in this process of growing our business. I remember she saw me in this stage and I was like, I want to do blogs, I want to do YouTube, I want to do email, I want to do all of those things. And this was like, granted, like year 2 in business. Like this was, I had no right to be touching any of this. But my belief system was, if I'm literally more places and if I'm doing everything and I'm everywhere, then obviously I'm going to be successful. And I learned very quickly, she saw it coming a mile away and she was like, Kate, this is a lot. But I was like, no, I want to do it. And I was really stubborn. And so when I started to execute it very quickly, it ended up being something that didn't work out, and I spread myself too thin, and I overextended myself, my time, my focus. I wasn't consistent. And so because of that, all of the effort, the energy, the time, the investment that I put into that really meant that we were right back at ground zero, because it really diluted the quality of anything that I was doing, because my attention was too many places. I was trying to do a YouTube video, then make it into a newsletter, then put it on a blog. And at this point, we were a team, or like a, duo of 2. So I had no right doing any of that, but it was because my perspective, my belief system was, if I'm doing all the things, that's going to be the reason that I grow and scale. But what most entrepreneurs don't recognize, and my hard lesson was, yes, you can be everywhere. Yes, you can do everything. But if you're trying to be on every platform and you're trying to have every offer and price point available, and if you're trying to do everything, you're really doing nothing, because you're diluting so much of your attention, resources, and consistency that you're doing everything subpar. And frankly, you're doing nothing well because you're spread too thin. So when we're trying to scale too fast, there can be this belief that if we just do more, we can achieve more, we can generate more. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. If anything, most of the time when we're scaling businesses, we're looking to refine and pull back and maybe even do less in the pursuit of growing more. And so it's really this constant, I will say, with scaling, it's, adding and subtracting, and seeing, okay, well, where do we need to add because it's required? So say, for example, this podcast, this is an add to our business that we didn't have before, but then becomes, is there a way that we can refine? So for our podcast, even when we generated this and added this to the business, originally it had a lot of bloat around it. It had a very long process that it took. It felt a little clunky. And then we went and we refined, we dialed in the systems, we dialed in everybody's role, and now it's a well-oiled machine. But if we hadn't have done that, it would have just been something that took a lot of time, energy, and resources from everybody. And it would just have been an ad at that point. So we have to be really careful that when we're growing and we're trying to scale, fight that urge to do everything and be everywhere and feel like you can't wait. It can't be done in stages, that it has to all happen right now. I can't tell you how many sales calls I've been on with people who say, yeah, the goal is like, I really want to do a podcast and then I want to be on YouTube and then I want to, do a event this year. And then I also am going to launch a mastermind, but I do also want a course. And I'm like, okay, ding, ding, ding. This person needs help with scaling, because it tells me that they're trying to do way too much, way too soon, way too fast. And because of that, they're frankly not going to move the needle at all. So there's also something you'll probably very much recognize, maybe even in yourself, which again, this is just an invitation for reflection, is this belief that if I spend more time or more money on marketing, that is what we need to grow. And so you look at marketing as the main lever for the business's growth. So this is things like, not looking at retention of clients. It's not looking at your reputation. It's not looking at building brand. It's not looking at anything other than more content, more marketing, more places. And I will say I've seen businesses that I have come into my virtual office, if you will, and they don't want to talk about anything other than marketing. And they genuinely, to their core, believe that marketing is the sole reason that they are not successful or not growing. And it's always hard for people to understand this, but marketing is rarely the reason that you're not growing. Do you need to have a presence? Of course. Do you need to be, intentional and strategic with your marketing? Yes. But if you have fires happening inside your house and your house is on fire, do you really think you should be curating the front lawn? No. Why are we fixing the marketing of the forward facing of the business when the inside of your house is on fire? Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense to be mowing the lawn when the house is on fire. And so that's how I feel about people who are prioritizing marketing versus teams, systems, retention, the things inside the business that if you focused on those would help the business to grow. The other belief is the fact that you may feel that because you have a good product, scaling is going to be easy. Like, we've got a great product, we've got a great delivery, we've got great results. That's going to help the business to grow. And listen, there's two sides. You can have a really bad product and really good marketing. And what's going to happen? You're going to get people in, but they're not going to stay because the product is crappy. If you have a good product or service and it's really, really good, that's great. And it's going to help people to stay in your world. It's going to help people to refer their friends. But guess what? You having a good product alone, but not having good marketing is also an issue, because it means you have a great service or a great product, but nobody knows about it because you don't focus on marketing. So the sweet spot is really to have both. It's to have a really good delivery, and that's where we always focus first and foremost, to have a really good delivery and have a really good product. And then to also make sure that that product is being seen or that service is being seen by marketing that's going out to your audience. So you really, for success, need both. Having a good product alone is not enough to scale a business, because that assumes, in thinking that or having that perspective, that everyone knows your product exists. And I'm going to give you an example I give to my clients. When someone says like, but I have really good delivery, I have a really good product. Yes, but that's the same thing as saying I have a really good coffee shop, but the coffee shop is hidden around the corner in some back alley. It's very popular with the people who know about it. Great. I love that for you. But also it means that even though you've got great coffee, you may not have people finding your hidden alley if you don't have good marketing. So the thing that we want to look at is having both. And so this belief of, well, because I have a good offer, my business is going to be fine. I can scale. No, you still need other elements of your business outside of just having a good service or just having a good product in order to grow. This next belief is going to be for all of you who fall into comparison. And listen, in the earlier stages of my business, I don't really feel like I experience this now, but in the earlier stages of my business, this was definitely something that I navigated, which was really looking at what your competitors are doing and believing that because your competitors are doing, that's guiding your strategy and what you feel you should be doing. So if your competitors have a course, you feel like you should have a course. If your competitors have a mastermind, you feel like you should have a mastermind. If your competitors have a service that's a 1-day intensive service, you're like, should I have that? And what it does is it basically looks to use your competitors as the baseline for creating your success and creating the pathway for your growth. And it's one of the fastest ways to not scale because you don't, number one, know the intention of why they created it. Number two, you don't actually understand how that fits into your business model and what this means for you in the short term and long term. And most importantly, it's based off someone else's vision. Like this is not really rooted in what's going to help you grow. And so the basis of scaling that way means that you end up in a copy paste game. And I'm sure as I'm saying this, you can think of some people that you know that you feel like I know exactly who they're mentored by because they create a duplicate of that person's business. It's such a disservice to the way you could grow your business. And that's because you're not building it off your vision, you're building it off someone else's. The other one that's also a tough one for people is that people believing or having the mindset in scaling that because you're growing fast, your clients will understand. So like, my clients just need to understand that like I have so many clients. I can't tell you how often I hear about this on calls. And people say, well, I have a lot of clients. Like they need to understand that I have like 40 clients. They don't need to understand anything. They are a single client who is not focusing on anyone else in your business other than themselves as your client. So when you say, well, these clients need to understand they're part of a roster of 70 or 80, guess what? Newsflash, they don't care. They're not meant in this service to be someone who's considering all the rest of your business. That's not part of when someone invests with you, what's supposed to be in their consideration. Think about if you invest with me and I'm like, okay, I got to go, go, go. I have all these things happening. And I say, well, you need to understand, I have X amount of clients. Well, why is that your burden to carry? Why is that something that you should have to care about? Right? So in believing that we're like in the belief systems we have, it's scaling too fast. What we're doing is we're making our growing pains someone else's problem. We're believing that because we have so many clients and we're, stretched thin and we're feeling like we are really like torn in a million different pieces when it comes to resources of time, money, whatever, your clients should understand. Your clients shouldn't understand because it's not their responsibility to understand. That's not part of their ownership. That's not a burden they're supposed to carry as your client. And the thing I will also say that is, really important for people to recognize is that when we scale, then we'll do blank, whatever that may be. When we scale, then we'll hire a team. When we scale, then we'll get our books in order. When we scale, then we'll worry about our brand. And it's this constant, like kind of almost like in life, right? Like this destination happiness. Like when I buy a house, then I'll be here. When I get married, then I'll feel here. And the thing that is a easy way to constantly check in on yourself is to do so while you're in the process of scaling. So like it's not a matter of when we get here, then we do blank. It's saying in this moment, let's triage what's happening in the business and let's ask ourselves, is there an opportunity for where we need to refine or to change something here so that we don't break the business and make more problems than there needs to be? So here's the thing, when we have these beliefs, right? We go through all these different mindsets or perspectives that you might feel ring true to you, or maybe you were on the client side of that and someone said, well, I have 40 clients, and you saw that maybe somebody who's trying to scale too fast because you see these traits in them. These all have an impact on the business. Like this belief system and this perspective is how you then take that belief and that perspective, and that becomes your behavior, which ultimately is what creates results or lack of results within your business. Some of those lack of results, meaning negative cash flow, not having enough money to pay the bills, declining profit margins, not literally having, even though you're making tons of money, no profit or no extra money at the end of the day or of the month to show for it. You have lots of high, kind of like churn rates in your business. You've got people coming in one door and leaving out the back door. Like nobody is staying. There's no retention with customers. They're not wanting to stay in your world because the service is not dialed in. You've probably got employees and even team members or contractors who are not excited by the work, or you feel like you're bringing people in and they're quitting or leaving, and you're trying to understand, like, how do I get people to stay and how do I sustain this? You're working nonstop because of this, right? So again, grow, grow, grow. No growth is ever enough. Well, guess what? That leads to you working at 6 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock at night because of that, because you're constantly like, there's just got to be more. You oftentimes, because you're trying to do too much as well, may have a lot of interest in your offers because you're marketing aggressively, you're trying to sell aggressively. But in doing so, what you're also doing is you're probably having decline of conversion rate. You've got lots of interest, but nobody's moving over the finish line because there's too much going on. And there's also most likely a lot of massive increase of operating expenses, or frankly, investing in the business. And the thing I want to say with that is, like, some people, and many frankly, have this belief when they're scaling that money solves all problems. So what's one of the behaviors with that? We spend, spend, spend. Because if I just spend money, that will solve my problem of whatever I'm experiencing right now. What that leads to is you have tons of money going out, but you're not always keeping track of it because you're just like, okay, solve problem, money, solve problem, money. Don't know that, hire someone. Don't know that, hire someone to do it. And before you know it, you've got so much money going out and you're spending so much money that even though you're like, I want to make 2 million or 3 million, as you make more, you're also spending more. So at the end of the day, when we get down to the bottom line, you're really not making any more money. Sometimes you're actually putting yourself more in the hole. You're going more in the negative just in the pursuit of grow, grow, grow. So what we know is that there's belief systems and mindsets that create this problem. There's signs in your business that are going to show you behaviors that you're doing right now that are indicators you are someone who's scaling too fast. Okay. Okay, so I want to take a quick little brief interruption from today's episode to let you know about something really exciting. And I want to first preface, there is nothing here that I have to sell you. This is about something that is entirely free that I think would be a massive support for you if you are someone who's loving all things ambitious podcast. So we have created an absolutely incredible community that is called the Ambitious Network. This is really a place where coaching and masterminds meet high-level networking of other women who are just like you. So a little bit of what you can anticipate. This is a place for you to grow, to connect, and ultimately to get the support that you need to elevate your business. And so some of the things you can anticipate inside. Number one, live hot seat coaching. This is literally live coaching in the way that I would do inside of our masterminds and our different offers, only inside of this community, entirely free. You'll also get the opportunity to get access to exclusive giveaways that are not available anywhere else. So these are things like giveaways of different books and resources that I'm obsessed with that have really helped me in my journey of business, but also things on a larger scale, like some of which have been 6 months of private coaching type of giveaways. So all of this to be said, massive, massive amount of resources being given inside, and also trainings and resources, tools of frameworks and downloads and worksheets and masterclasses that are going to be things that will really help to take you and your business to the next level. Now, it's also not just about me. I have an incredible network and a community of other entrepreneurs who also want to give back to you if you've loved their interviews and their discussions on the Ambitious podcast. So we have guests that are also providing resources in the community that will only be available inside the Ambitious Network. But there's also the networking aspect. And this is a place for you to not only connect with other women about what's going on in your business, what's currently working or not working in today's current market. It's a place to share wins, but it's also a place to connect with me and get my feedback and support for you and your business. Now, all of that to be said, this is as I said, mastermind meets networking. And I really have created this as a community that I want to be something you've never gotten anywhere else. It's not this low ticket membership that you feel like you're paying for, this graveyard of resources that the person has that they don't know what to do with. And it's also not that Facebook group that you're inside of that you feel like you get tons of notifications, but you don't really want anything that's inside of it. It all feels surface level. We want to give you the ability to have mastermind meets high level networking all in one place. And the Ambitious Network is where you're going to find that. So, how you can get inside. If you want to go to the show notes beneath, you can click a link to join us inside the Ambitious Network. And if you also want to connect with me on Instagram, I'm also happy to chat with you about it. So, if you DM me the word ambitious, we'll be sure to chat a little bit more about the network for you and give you the link to get inside. So, all of that to be said, I don't want to take any more time away from today's episode. So, without further ado, let's get back into the show. So, these are mistakes that I'm going to outline per department of your business. So, we're going to go over marketing, we're going to go over sales, we're going to go over offers and delivery. I'm literally going to go through department by department of your business. And I want you, as I note these, to reflect to yourself, do any of these feel like they ring true for me? Because these are behaviors that I see in businesses that have grown and scaled and basically scaled themselves out of business or have gone to such a peak of revenue. Someone wants to do $3 million a year. And again, that's great. But if we want to hit $3 million a year, we want to also make sure that we're not hitting that and then having so many issues in the business that we got to go back to 1 million a year because everything broke. Okay. So again, this is a matter of scaling sustainably and doing so in a way that is stable. That doesn't mean that when we hit a mark, we have to break it all down again because it's all broken by the time we get there. Okay. So department number 1 is going to be marketing. Okay. So I want you to think about these in context to marketing. Are you somebody who's overloading your content or your social media and you are constantly posting, but you have no engagement? Again, this is a sign that you are doing all of the things, but there's a lot of emphasis on quantity and not necessarily on quality. So it's again moving really quickly, go, go, go. More is always better, but we're not really correlating. Does the more of whatever we're doing actually generate more results? You're probably experiencing as well production burnout. So you might be in a place where you like start a blog, you start a podcast, you try to do all of the things and you were really initially excited about it and you got really amped up, but maybe you recorded a podcast and you had like 10 episodes, or you started doing newsletters and you sent out 3 of them. Before you knew it, you were already back into inconsistency. Are you being consistent with production? When I see somebody who is going, I want to do this, I want to do this, and before 3 months have passed, they're already back into inconsistency, it tells me they're trying to do too much with marketing. They're not actually doing so in a sustainable way, because if you start, let's just say to the example of the podcast, if you start a podcast and you record 10 episodes and then you quit, that is to me a sign that the podcast wasn't part of a long-term scaling strategy for the business. It was this quick belief of, if I start a podcast, I'm going to make sales. If I make sales, that will grow. Boom, let's record today. And it's this very like short dopamine spike intention, rather than actually looking at how the podcast long-term could be a resource for you to grow and to scale the business. You also are potentially somebody who's focusing a lot on trends. You're keeping up with all the current trends. So you're trying to say, what's the trend in marketing? I'm going to do that. If there's a trend in the style of content we make, we're going to do that. If there's a trend in offers, we're going to do that, right? Like you're always someone who's chasing trends. And the most obvious place we see this is in marketing. So you'll see people that as a brand and as a business, it feels like their marketing is always changing with what's changing online. Like there's no signature piece to what they create. They don't stay true to who they are. And they're constantly chasing the next thing that everybody's doing, because they have the belief that if they just chase the trend and if they just follow what everyone else is doing, that will ding, ding, ding be the reason that they're successful. But what really ends up happening is you follow trend in marketing. And before you know it, nobody has any idea who you are or what they can really rely on you for or come back to you for. So you actually lose yourself by doing trends more than you help to create a brand or an identity by doing trends. You also may be someone who's cutting corners a lot, even with things we see as right now with AI. And listen, I want to preface this. I love AI. I use AI every single day in our business. But when it comes to marketing, you may be doing so in a way that is so just like, get it out. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care if it's good. I don't care if there's quality. And it's just post, 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 more, more, more. And you see it in the content. You see captions that are written by AI that are extremely obvious because you're just trying to do more. You see, for example, clips that you've edited using AI and you didn't care what it pulled, you didn't care to make it good quality. It was just more, more, and more post, post, post. And what ends up happening is you dilute the quality of your marketing, you dilute the quality of your brand in the belief that if I just use AI and cut corners some way, somehow, I can get more stuff to go out. And if I get more stuff to go out, that's going to be the reason that I grow. And a massive one that we see as well is virality. This belief that if I just go viral, the whole pursuit of their marketing is just to go viral, go viral, go viral. And what it means is you're actually just chasing numbers, you're chasing vanity metrics instead of things that will actually help to grow the business. And I'll be the first person to tell you, you going viral is not going to be the basis of your business scaling. I know many entrepreneurs, including myself, who do not go viral every single week or month and have very successful scaling businesses. That's because we're not looking for the blip in dopamine that we need to be like, that's the thing that's going to make us grow. We're looking for consistent compounding growth week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter. That's the real way to grow a business, not viral. I want to go viral every Tuesday and Wednesday as my mission. It's not sustainable. And it's also not really a strategy when it comes to growing your business. Also seeing people who focus so much on social media and not at all on their email list. Like you might have, I literally have seen people who have 200, 300,000 followers on TikTok that I've worked with who've come to me and said, Kate, I need to find a way to get these people off social. It's like, okay, well, obviously you must have a big email list. How many emails do you have? And they're like, I don't know, like 300. And I was like, okay. And then I have other businesses that I work with who have 30,000 followers and they have a 10,000 person email list. A third of the people who consume them are on their email list. So the person who thinks about email is thinking about longevity. They're thinking about the fact that this is a sustainable, scalable thing that they own and they realize the resource of having an email list. That's something that they prioritize because again, they're really focused on the long term and what can help them over time to grow. The person who's just focused on social media is really focused on the following or the views and again the vanity metrics and not looking at is this going to impact my business in the next 5 to 7 years and am I setting myself up for success long term. So they only focus on social media and oftentimes never build the email list. And they also typically have this belief that they really try to have their marketing adhere to everybody. Well, like, what about this person? Do they resonate with my message? I want to make sure that person resonates with it. And also that person resonates with it. Before you know, your message gets so heavily diluted because you're just trying to help everyone. And listen, I want to say, like, these are not things, by the way, that I'm saying I've never made mistakes of. I am someone, even myself, who has made these mistakes in my business. I remember early on, I wanted to help every stage of business. I wanted to help beginners. I wanted to help intermediate. I wanted to help scaling. I wanted to help every stage of person, basically, that if you had a business, I wanted to help you. Like that was my motto. The problem with that being, it's extremely difficult to market to all different levels of people who have all different levels of problems. And so what I recognized was like my success in scaling was not going to be about thinking of every single avatar of person that I could help. If you had a business, I could help you. That's not really sustainable. It's not really scalable. So what I had to do is say, okay, well, who am I going to double down on? Because what we know is that singularity of focus is something that is essential for scaling businesses. And that can be being focused on the two channels of marketing you're on. It can be, focused on the person you're helping. It can be the focus on the offer that's really working for you. The businesses that I help that grow rapidly and have maintained that scaling over time are people who really recognize that singularity of focus is significant as a tool in being able to scale. So when we think about marketing to everybody and trying to just help everyone, what that's doing is, again, diluting focus, diluting resources, and frankly, making it harder for you to market. So what I decided was like, listen, I love working with scaling entrepreneurs. I love working with all entrepreneurs, but I loved working with scaling entrepreneurs. I found myself wanting to just talk about scaling topics all day. I was just like loving getting into those businesses. So what I decided was like, I'm going to lean into scaling businesses. That's going to be my thing. Is that to say that I couldn't help a beginner tomorrow? No, I 1,000% could dive in with a beginner tomorrow. and help someone to create a business or to grow a business if they're just getting started. But what I recognized was by me trying to help everybody, I was really not making a true impact. I was going really wide, but I wasn't going deep. And it was because I was going wide that I was struggling to figure out how to sell all these different offers, all these different price points, all these frankly different people, even though they're all entrepreneurs, they had such different experiences in how they operated in business. So because of that, it became extremely difficult to do what I needed to do effectively and consistently. When I doubled down on scaling, my marketing became easier, my offers became easier, everything in my entire business got streamlined overnight because what it meant was that I was able to really focus and have that singularity of focus to go deep. And it showed in our results and the ability for us to grow. So, the next area we're going to look at is sales. Okay. So, in sales, what are the things that we might be doing or that we might have as actions or behaviors that are a sign we're trying to scale too fast or an indicator we're scaling too fast? So, trying to delegate your sales without necessarily being at a place where it warrants doing so, or in the sense of your revenue might not be at a place of doing so, or you're at a place where you don't actually have a proven framework that it warrants you giving away your sales yet. I will tell you the belief that many scaling businesses have is that I just want to get this off my plate. I don't want to deal with XYZ anymore. I need to delegate. I need to delegate. And listen, like I'm the first to say delegation is a great thing. Like we don't want to, I'm not going to knock delegation. Like I delegate a lot of things. But getting it off your plate and removing yourself too fast can actually be a detriment to a business. It can actually keep you from scaling because what you do in that belief of, okay, I got to delegate this and give that away and give that away, what you actually end up doing is you give away things and you hand them off to people, but there's no quality control. There's often lack of training. There's things that you're trying to give off too quickly. And by doing so, you're basically letting someone who doesn't know the feeding schedule and doesn't know the nap time and all of that babysit your child. Like that's what's happening is you're handing off this, that, and the other, but you're not taking adequate time to ask yourself, is this ready to be delegated? And the person I'm delegating this to, do they have what they need to maintain the level of success that I created with it? So I actually typically tell people sales is one of the last things that you should be delegating. You should start with typically day-to-day tasks, by the way, admin, operations, anything that's kind of more back-end related of systems and maintaining of the machine. Then I typically recommend delivery, so getting someone to help you with delivery, whether, it's adding on another team member to serve clients, if it's adding on, say you're a consultant, someone to help you with making of resources, things like that. And then I go into marketing and getting someone to help you to maintain your marketing so that as you're growing the business, your marketing never slows down in the pursuit of growth. And then we would be looking at sales as the last piece. And the main reason being is sales is the lifeline of the business. So it's something because it's the lifeline of the business that we can't really afford to have a misstep with. If someone from admin answers an email wrong, or if someone from admin doesn't put something on your calendar, the impact to the scaling of the business from that action or mistake is a lot less of a domino than if you have someone you say, hey, here's my sales calls, or hey, you're going to do my DM lead generation for me. And before you know it, you've cannibalized the business because the lifeline of what was bringing in the money has now gone under. So when it comes to delegating sales, you can delegate sales. And I help people to do it. And I've trained people's closers that do their sales. I'm a big advocate of delegating your sales, but it's just to say you have to do it right. And it has to be the right time in your business, of the stage of business that you're at, to be able to do that. Also, something that we see is people who are in this aspect in the selling process, whether in the DMs with someone, as I said, on a sales page, or even on a sales call, you are literally promising the world to someone just to get them over the finish line. These massive, big, bold, frankly, oftentimes unethical promises that you're making in your sales while you are like, okay, like, yeah, I'm going to get you this result or that result. What you don't recognize is you're doing anything to get them over the finish line, but now you've moved from sales bucket to delivery bucket and you need to deliver on that promise. So while in scaling, we're like, okay, I just want to say whatever I got to say to get this person over the finish line. It's one of the most detrimental things you can do in your business because short term, is it going to get you cash in the door? 100%. I see people do this all the time in marketing and in sales. They will, yeah, we can get you that result. Yeah, I help people double their business. Is this possible as a result? Sure, yeah, we can do that. Like we do all the time. You're not thinking about what you're saying. And so when you're not thinking about what you're saying, or if you're not conscious of the big promises you're making, the downside of that is you could be making a massive mistake in your business because you're promising the world, they get into the delivery. Great, yeah, you've made the sale. Yippee, you've added $20,000 to your business. Great. But now when you don't deliver on that big, bold promise that wasn't really even a promise you should have been making in the first place, it's your fault. So yes, you collected the cash, but that cash is now connected to a client who's not happy with their results. So when I see people making these really big, bold promises, like as a service provider, yeah, we'll get it done in this timeline. Sure, no problem. When you and I both know it's probably not going to happen like that. Or as a business coach, people ask me, they say, what's the typical results that I'm going to see? Like, do you think it's reasonable that I could hit, 7 figures in the next 3 calls? And I say to people, listen, could you hit figures in the next 3 calls? Have I had clients do it? 100%. Do I know that you're going to do that? I couldn't tell you in any aspect, in any bone of my body, whether that's going to happen for you, because it would be unethical for me, whether you want to sign on for 5,000, 50,000, or 100,000. I'm not going to tell you that by working with me, you will hit 7 figures just to get you to sign the contract. Because what it's doing is it's creating problems for tomorrow, even though it didn't create a problem for today. And so what I see with people scaling too quickly is these big promises just to get the big paycheck. And it's a problem. You can tell how passionate I am about this. It's a problem because it's something that then when the delivery issues happen and they're like, Kate, I'm so frustrated. These clients are expecting these crazy results and like they're expecting, to hit massive milestones here and massive milestones here. I'm like, hey, Susan, look at your marketing. Look at the marketing that says you can achieve this. I achieve this in 90 days. I do this in 1 call. In 24 hours, they blew up their business. Now you're promise, 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 promise. Now you get them into your offer. And now you're upset that they're holding you to the promise in your marketing. How about instead of blaming your client, how about instead of the client is the reason that you're frustrated, you take ownership and say, maybe in the pursuit of getting so much cash, sales, 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 maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I need to check myself and stop marketing these big, bold promises and realize that while it's making me money, it's making problems for tomorrow, regardless of the cash that it brought in. And it is, guys, I this is something I really want to make sure lands for you. It's one of the fastest ways to go out of business because I will tell you, your reputation in business is one of the things that you can't get back. Once someone has a belief system around you and who you are, what you stand for, and what you do, it's very difficult to turn the Titanic in a different direction. So while I understand that if you say that thing on the sales call, or if you make that promise in the DMs and you make those big, bold claims, it can feel like, great, well, it's making me sales. And it might be, but guess what? It's creating problems elsewhere as well. And so it's just not worth risking your reputation over, even if it meant bringing in more revenue today. Something I also see is trying to prioritize tons of quantity over quality of conversations. So, we've talked in previous episodes about ManyChat, which is like an automated messaging platform. And I'm not against ManyChat. ManyChat has many purposes and many functions for a lot of scaling businesses. But what I think is important is for us to recognize that sometimes we try to automate relationships too much. And what ends up happening is we lose the essence of why it was working in the first place. So when someone, for example, has, let's just say, a DM flow or they're selling in the DMs and the DMs were really working and they were making great sales from it. Well, the thing is, if you move that to ManyChat and it starts to die because you're trying to, again, be like, okay, remove myself, you're removing yourself from sales as much as you can. But what sometimes happens is you remove the essence of why it worked in the first place. So if you're not careful, you'll actually remove why you were making money in the pursuit of trying to make more money. So we have to be careful to not automate too fast. And also, with, again, speed, something I'm also seeing is ignoring follow-up. So people who will have a sales call with someone and they don't have enough time to send the follow-up proposal, and they're sending the follow-up proposal, say like 2 weeks later or 7 days later after the call, because they're trying to just pack the calls, get more calls, but they pack their calendar and they don't have adequate time to really follow through on the sale. They're just like quick win, get them in the calendar. So, really, what it means is that you're forgetting potentially to get back to people, or you're taking so long to get back to people that it's literally undermining the potential quality of the sale because you're not giving yourself adequate time to process that sale. So, the other one that I will say, oh my goodness, that I see all the time is adjusting pricing. Like you are at a place where you're hearing people around you wanting something low ticket, so you make that low ticket. Or you have someone who says, well, I can't do anything other than this price point, and you're making custom payment plans, custom payments. You had packages, but you're never adhering to the packages, or you're never adhering to the program pricing that you set out when you created it, because every single situation is custom, because all you're trying to do is collect cash. There's no integrity, there's no honoring of the structure of the business, and being okay in a sales conversation with someone not investing with you because you don't have the payment plan that they're asking for. You refuse to allow it to be true that someone might not invest with you because you don't have the payment plan that they're looking for. And so you're constantly adjusting your pricing. Someone says, well, my budget was XYZ. Great, I'm going to change my price. Or, well, I really need, a 9-month payment plan, not an 8-month payment plan. Great, I'll whip that up for you. You're always in this aspect of adhering to the client's demands and less of honoring the structure or the integrity of your business. Okay. So those are some of the sales things that might be behaviors that you're making right now that are a sign that you're trying to just push, go, and scale way too fast. And it's really part of the thing that's actually potentially going to be the reason that your business goes under or stops scaling in the future. Now, let's talk a little bit about product suite. Product suite and offerings are also something that have a lot of key behaviors within them. One is just offering way too many things. People who are trying to just make money for the sake of making money will literally create an offer for everyone and their mom. This person says they have this problem, boom, offer. This person says they want to spend that much and that's their budget, boom, offer. Like they just hear anything that anyone says. And then as soon as they hear that, that basically is the basis of how they create their offerings. And so because of that, you end up with 25 offerings because you are making things for basically anybody who needs one so you can adhere to the entire market and not have a single person left unserved. What it ends up doing, though, is it makes you really an expert in nothing, and it doesn't create any signature offering or signature awareness around you and the impact that you can have on your specific ideal client. Like you're not having any aspect of consistency. So, because of this, we're also seeing that you're going to attract sometimes with that so many different types of clients, and they're so inconsistent that you end up getting burnt out because you're trying to just, again, serve everybody in all these different problems in all these different ways. And you really like overextend yourself and your resources. And the other thing with the constant offer changing and having all these offers as well is the fact that, remember, you have to market all these offers and you have to sell them. So because you're constantly changing your offerings, your audience is also like, what the heck is going on? Because it feels like you're promoting something left, right, and center. Every week you've got a new offer and you've got nothing signature to your brand or to your name that people recognize. So when trying to constantly reiterate the product suite and how do I serve everybody, and I got to promote this and have this and this price point and this delivery, there's also sometimes this aspect of feeling like you're constantly changing the actual structure. So say you do have a signature offer. Let's just say you have a mastermind or you have a package or you have a service and you have this as something you want to have in your business long term. I change the structure of my programs max twice a year. More often than not, once a year. I'm looking at revising the structure. I'm not like, this month I'm doing this, and this month I'm doing this, and this quarter I'm changing this. I'm not constantly changing the integrity of the offer, because what that tells me is that I'm just change, like again, moving way too fast, that I'm not sitting to think about why am I integrating this? What's the impact it's going to have? And what are we looking to achieve by making this change? When people make constant quick changes to their offers, again, it's this big desire for the constant dopamine spike of, should I have this many calls? Should I have this many meetings? Should I have this type of schedule? Should I have this communication? Maybe I need this module. I'm going to revamp this. You can't sit still, and you're changing and you're losing yourself in the development of the offer, believing that if I just change those things, that's going to be the thing that helps to grow the business. And frankly, it's creating more complexity for yourself than anything. With this, also seeing people who have way too complex of payment plans. When I see someone, I had someone who came to me for a sales consult, and they had an offer that they had. And they had a 1 month, a 2 month, a 3 month, a 4 month, a 6 month, and a 9 month payment plan. And I remember saying, like, why? Like, why do we have so many payment plans? And they were like, well, people sometimes need smaller, they need longer. And I'm like, great. But if they can't afford the offer, if you have a pay in full, a payment plan, and an extended payment plan, that's all you need. If they can't afford a all in, broken up, or really broken up, they might not be at a place where they should be investing in the offer. Like, if we need to put such an extended array of payment plans out, you're making it more complicated for people to buy. You're making it more complex. They don't know what to choose, so they don't act at all. The goal with payment plans is to really make it super easy. And this is literally my recommendation for almost any package-based service. Have a pay in full option, have a payment plan option that is broken up in whatever feels good, and then have an extended payment plan, which is kind of a little bit outside of what would typically be the standard, like monthly or something like that. That allows the person who's all in, they have the investment to pay it all up front if they want to save a little bit. You can do a normal payment plan, or you can do a little extended if it's supportive for you to break it down in price point. And that's if you want to do that. You don't have to do that, but that's an option if you want to have that to be supportive. Most offers don't need to have more than 3 structures of a payment plan. There should, let's just say, even a 6-month offer, you could have a pay in full option, 6-month, which is a monthly payment, or an 8-month, which is a slight extended. That's it. You don't need anything else. Making it too complex makes it too hard for people to say yes. Also, something I see a lot is when people have offers and they're nonstop offering like limited time discount and limited time offer and limited time this, trying to create incentive around the offerings. But really what you're doing is you're taking away from the quality of the offer. You're taking away from what makes it valuable or what makes it distinct. And so really with constant changing of structure in the offer, of like the features of how it's made, we're constantly changing pricing. We have too much pricing. We're constantly putting it on discount and then limited time offer and value add. It is so much noise that is not necessary to grow. And in the pursuit of this, it's the belief that if you do this, it's going to help you to make more sales. The reason you're changing the features is so you can market them. The reason you're limited time offer and, one-time bonus and all of these things is because you need that to generate the sale. It's always just these tactics that we're doing with all the payment plans, even just to be able to get the sale. So you'll see a trend here in marketing, in sales, and now in offers and product suite. We're seeing we are compromising the integrity of what works in business and what really does help a business scale just in the pursuit of collecting money. And it's one of the fastest ways to basically unravel your business. The other thing that I see as well is people who are trying to do a lot of one-off services. So when you're trying to offer a lot of one-offs, you're doing like a one-off call, a one-off service, a one-off week offer, a one-off day offer, and you have those always on promotion and you're always trying to come up with something quick cash, quick cash. What it means is, again, we're just after the pursuit of money. So I want to say I have nothing wrong with intensive offers. I have an intensive offer. I offer, as I said earlier, VIP days, which are like a day strategy session with myself. The thing that is important for us to recognize, though, is that that is an offer that has been around for a long time and is actually part of a structure of our entire product suite that leads into a very specific style of outcome. We do not, though, pop those new versions of that up every single month or week. It's always there as an intensive if you want it, but I'm not leveraging those just as quick cash, quick cash. If anything, I will be really transparent with you. Those are considered extra bonus money or revenue for our business. I don't base any of our projections of our business and how we're going to grow off of those. And why is that? There's no monthly recurring revenue. They're just a cash influx. So while a cash influx for most people, they're like, well, Kate, I would love a cash influx. Yes, but having a little blip this month of say $5,000 or a little blip this month of $15,000, that might feel good in the moment, But guess what? You're right back at zero the next month. So the thing that I see is people who are like, I want the cash, I want the cash. They just bring in these little one-time things, one-time offers, one-time intensives, one-time programs, all in the pursuit of just making quick cash, but there's no longevity to it. So you end up in this constant cycle of make, create, create, create. And before you know it, you're just stuck in the weeds of production and tons of hours in making things, and you're not moving the needle basically in any way. So, with this, the other thing I will also say to kind of put a bow on offers is upsells and downsells. There's so many people that I see who are just so focused on selling in general that they're not thinking about the longevity of what can happen in their world. So, an example of this, if someone works with me for 6 months, and this is anybody, so if you're listening to this as a client, you know this process. When anybody works with me for 6 months, they have the ability after the 6 months, if we feel like it's a good partnership, we invite them to continue to work with us after that 6 months for another 6 months. That is what's considered an upsell or a continuation type of model, which is where you increase the retention of how long people work with you. And you're looking at ways to take your existing clients and help them to continue to grow within your ecosystem. Now, I want to preface this is not just having them invest to invest. This is because it's actually necessary or it's required or it's beneficial to them to do so. But the reason that I see a lot of people miss this is because they just don't look at how there's longevity. They don't look at how can one person, instead of being in my world for 6 months, be in my world for 12 months. Here's something I want to share with you, which is why I talk about retention. I've had businesses that are so focused on one-time offer and quick thing here and quick thing there. Before you know it, what ends up happening is you've got people that are coming in for 6 months and they leave after that and you never see them again. I was saying to a client of mine, what if I could help you to double your business and I didn't increase the amount of marketing or sales you're doing right now? And she's like, oh my God, that would be amazing. I'm like, great. We need to fix your offers because your offers have people coming in and they don't want to stay. Like they're not excited about the delivery. They're not excited about the community. They're not excited about being in your world. They don't want to stay in your world because of the experience. So what you're not recognizing is that you're having people come in for a program. Let's just say they're investing $10,000. Right now, you need another client to come in that you don't know yet to also invest $10,000, where if you had a good offer and you had great results, that single person would invest again for $10,000. Now you've made the same amount of money and you needed less leads. This is why it's being intentional about where we focus our energy and scaling. Because this idea that we just need more sales, more marketing, more leads is, again, very rarely the case. So the last area that I'm going to dive into for you is team and operations. So like your team and the people that support you, as well as the back end of your business, the systems, the processes. So one of the things that I will say is hiring too quickly and not taking intentional time to think about who you're hiring. Really easy example that I see for this is co-coaches. This is one of the main culprits that I think is a massive issue. And we also see this in agencies, people handing things off to a service provider that's not maybe at the same caliber of them or even in proximity to them. But a really easy example is co-coaches, and you may even be a victim to this. I know I am. But I was in a program and I got passed off to a co-coach once. And it literally was like this person didn't even know half the things that the original person who ran the offer knew. And so for me, I was very frustrated because obviously I was going to make this investment and then I get passed off to someone who clearly had not been trained and had not been really given like the framework or guidance. And then also with that, had very inconsistent support and delivery. One coach would say one thing, the other coach would say another thing, and there was such mixed messaging across the board that it really, you were kind of left with like, okay, what is going on here? And what it came down to was the person tried to get themselves out of their business too fast. And I want to be honest with you, like I had a moment of this in my business because one of our co-coaches was done with their time inside of one of our programs. And I had this moment where I thought, okay, I can hire a co-coach like immediately. But when I thought about that and I started to look at candidates and I started to look at all these different options, I realized to myself, I was like, I'm not going to be able to bring someone in that I feel like overnight has the credentials that I'm willing to give this person to my clients. Like I didn't feel like I had what I needed to be able to hand this person off to my clients. So because of that, what did I do? I got in there myself and I said, great, no co-coach, I'm coaching you now. Because it was the way to maintain the integrity while I got my ducks in a row to figure out to make sure that I brought in the right person, not just a person. And so sometimes we see with team, people are just trying to fill, basically put people in butts and seats to make sure that there's somebody to fill the role. Well, it's not a matter of finding somebody. It's a matter of finding the right person who's going to maintain the quality of your offer, your service, and your results and support. And so really bringing in someone too quick and just trying to fill a role is a big problem I see. Also with this belief of like sink or swim, and just you'll figure it out. Like just get into the role, just get into the position and you'll figure it out. Very much a lack of training, a lack of support, a lack of integration, really like a big missing the mark of helping the person to even have what they need to be successful. So, because of that, there's also a lot of trying to scale also with moving too quick without having the right tools or having the right systems or having the right things in place for yourself or even to support your team. And what ends up happening is when we don't have the right systems, when we don't have the right things in place, we're spending hours and hours and hours on something that's not going to move the needle. So an example of this, I had a client who came to me and she was a marketing agency. And she said to me, I track my clients' data. And I was like, great, that's amazing. How do you do that? And she's like, well, we basically have a spreadsheet and we take their post and we go through each of the posts and we manually input it. And I remember looking at her and I'm like, why are you doing that? And she's like, well, we give the spreadsheet to the client, all their stats are in there. And I'm like, but that's literally all housed in a platform. And at the time, the platform was called Metricool. It's changed since because Instagram changed their analytics. But at the time, it was called Metricool. And I said to her, you can literally just get your clients to create an account on this platform for free. And it will tell you in live time all the updates of data. So it's not a static snapshot of data. It's telling you in live time how it's growing and expanding. And she's like, oh my God, so I don't have to input this data. It was taking someone 3 hours a week to do this. And I was like, no. So she just got back 12 hours a month on her business because she was taking away this thing that she was doing manually that was basically a byproduct of not having the right tools or the right tech that could support her. So by not having the right tools and tech, you're just so in the go, go, go. And again, taking quick action, we're not really looking at efficiency. We're not really looking at productivity the way we need to be. Another thing we see with team is overlapping responsibilities. Nobody kind of knows who's supposed to be doing what because everything is so chaotic. Who does this action? Who's responsible for this? Who generates this outcome? No one really knows. And that's because, again, you brought in people very fast. Maybe there's a lack of training. And most importantly, there's probably a lack of systems and a lack of processes that are leading everything to feel very chaotic when it doesn't necessarily need to be. And with lack of systems, which is a big one we see with agencies, is things are falling through the cracks. Deadlines are being missed. Posts, let's just say as an agency that you're supposed to put out are not going out. You're having support that you're supposed to be providing that's not being provided in the way it's supposed to because you don't have the systems to support you in doing it the right way. And things are falling through the cracks, not because you're not trying to do them, not because you don't care, but because you literally are losing all this information in the sea of information and you're trying to find one thing and ensure it got done and you just can't because you don't have the systems or processes to support it. And the other thing I would also say is ignoring the warning signs and ignoring the feedback of team. If your team is telling you and vocalizing things to you, like, I feel like I don't know whose responsibility this is. I feel like I'm really tired and I'm like burnt out and I'm feeling very much at capacity. I feel like blank. If you're hearing any of these things and you're not actively taking action to mitigate those and to try to figure out how to overcome them, that over time will fester in the business and it will build up and it will build up to the point where your team members leave or they just do what's considered to be quiet quitting, which is they're in the business still and you're paying them, but they're really not invested in their roles. So when it comes to trying to think about scaling and we think back to, again, how do we all want to scale, we all want to grow our businesses, and some of us might even want to be that small percentage, that less than 10% who double our business year over year. You can do that. The basis of today and our discussion today was not to say that you cannot double your business. It's to say that there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And when you do it the wrong way and you fall to some of these belief systems and these mindsets we talked about, if you start to see those symptoms like the cash flow, working lots of hours, having issues with sales conversions, feeling like you have all these offers, not having very good profit margins, if you're seeing signs and flashing signals in your business, hey, whoa, 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 this is feeling like it resonates with me. And Also, if you're seeing some of the things I talked about in each of the departments of your business and you're doing those things and you're seeing yourself executing those behaviors today, this is an opportunity for you to say, I need to get a new way to scale. I need to get a new approach, a new perspective, a new framework from which to grow the business. Because what basically I do and what our business focuses on, which is why I wanted to talk about this, we try to help people to scale the right way. And what I mean by that is we look at all these departments of their business and we help them to make sure that they're able to take action without doing the actions that are going to derail the business. And the thing, which is why I wanted to talk about it, is it's a very fine line, right? There's a difference between helping you to refine your product suite and to maybe even add an offer versus how do we know when we've added too many offers? There are moments like myself with this podcast where adding a podcast to your business does make sense, but there's a fine line between adding a podcast and adding too much that you've actually diluted all your energy and resources in your team and you're on the path to burning down a scaling business. So the thing that I will say, if you want me to crystal ball it for you and tell you why does this matter, when you don't look to change some of these behaviors, these mindsets, these beliefs, these actions, what happens is you will still be able to scale your business. I want to be very clear. It's not that if you think these things, if you do these things, that you can't generate more revenue. I would actually argue you can probably generate potentially the same amount of revenue as the person next to you. Here's the thing. You won't have a business for a very long time. So if you're the kind of entrepreneur, and you answer this to yourself, if you're the kind of entrepreneur who just wants to do it for quick cash and you just want money in your pocket and you don't care on what disaster you leave behind you for your team, your clients, your marketing, your anyone in your ecosystem, then by all means do you. But what I focus on is helping entrepreneurs to scale ethically and to be able to do so in a sustainable, really systematic, stable way. So the goal being, we help you to double your revenue. We help you to be able to increase your revenue in whatever number capacity feels good for you, whatever your goal is, and make sure when you get there, your team has never been happier. Your retention is top notch. Your sales process is ethical and not asking for all these big promises in order to get someone over the finish line. Your marketing is something that is sustainable for you, that you can maintain every week and you're not burning out and not being consistent. The only difference between someone scaling well and someone scaling poorly is the experience that they have when they get to the number. And I wanted to talk about this because I have helped so many people to grow their businesses. And I've seen people do it great and I've seen people do it really poorly. And it really comes down to there's someone on the left-hand side who does it great and they are focused on all the things that will work long term and they really have the end goal in mind and they're not looking for this quick dopamine hit. And there's the other person who just wants quick cash. And because all they're focused on is money, everything else is collateral damage. Everyone else suffers and fails and is impacted as a result of their belief system, of their drive for more money, more for me, more cash. It's all just about this idea that more is better. And so the invitation today is to really ask yourself, how can I approach having the same goal? I'm not asking you to change your revenue goal. You can still have that big goal. I remember for me, I was making $0 and I wanted to make 7 figures. Go for that goal. That's the whole idea of being ambitious and driven. Go for the big thing that you want. But the process is just as important as the point of achievement. So you getting to that number, if it meant that you basically had a massive line of damage behind you, is it really worth it? And so my goal with anyone I work with is that they have to be on board with not compromising team, clients, ethics, values in the pursuit of achieving the number. And the exciting part is that it's possible. You can, like me, double your business, but you have to focus on the right things. You have to be able to look at, am I doing too much? You got to have that internal check-in system. And if you don't have that system, you hire somebody to be that internal check-in system, which is what I did. I've had mentors in my circle since the day I started my business that are my regulating system to say, hey, you're doing too much. And another way that I do this is my team. Shout out Kelsey. She has literally been my internal regulating system, which is like, okay, we're really spread thin, or this is a lot going on. Or, why don't we chunk this down? We'll do this as phase 1, phase 2. I still, like you, at times need my own reminders of these principles. But what I will say is that over time, when you start to execute them, they become more second nature, and it becomes the root and the principles from which you build your business. So scaling is something that is possible for you, and it is something that I see for you, and is something I'm excited for you. The question you have to ask yourself at the end of today is, what kind of business do I want to have when I get there? What kind of business do I want to have? If I have $1 million business, what will it look like? How will people feel? Will it be a great positive business, or will I have tons of problems, but I have 7 figures coming in the bank? You can choose to have a very successful business and have everybody around you succeed at the same time. So, all of that to say, my friends, I hope today was helpful for you. I also would love if there was anything that kind of downloaded for you. Maybe you realized that you have been scaling too fast, or you've been trying to scale too fast. Maybe you're like, you know what, Kate, I know somebody who had these traits, or I was coaching someone who had these traits, or I have a friend who has this. Send this to a friend. If you feel like you have another business owner who's constantly talking about grow, 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 faster, bigger, more aggressive in the goals, send this to them. Let this be their check-in and their reflection to see how they're growing, and are they maybe trying to grow too fast. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. And I would love to hear from you. Slide into the DMs as always. I always love to connect with you guys and hear what your downloads were. And I will see you on next week's episode. And as always, stay ambitious.